Hey everyone, welcome back. Sorry that this episode's going to be a little bit late, but let's go ahead and try to implement the Vue Router. So I have my application running. I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I'm going to clear everything. And what I want to do is I want to do npm install Vue Router. So after this has finished installing, let's go ahead into our package.json and verify that it's there. So there it is. Good. Alright, now what I want to do is, alongside with my main.js, I want to create a new file and I want to call it router.js. Okay, so this is where I'm going to implement my router. I'm going to go ahead and call import, and I want to import Vue from Vue. And let's copy this. I will call this router, and I will import the Vue router. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to make our Vue instance use the router. So now that our application uses the Vue router, we want to specify the routes that it's going to use. Okay, so let's go ahead, export default. So this is our regular old component, but we want to create a new instance of the router, right? And we're going to pass some options to it. And one of the properties is called, if I can spell it, routes, right? And it's an array. And it's going to be an array of routes, okay? Let's go ahead and specify the two pages that we have, home and login, right? So each of these is going to be an individual object. So for home, what would we want our path to be? So path, I mean the URL in the address bar here. So I would say path slash. All right. So path will be slash, and name, I'll call it home. So when you're calling pages programmatically, you can use either the slash, which is, so basically you can either navigate to a slash. This is how it's going to be represented in the address bar. But then you can have the name of the route, and this is where you can say navigate to home, and it will, instead of using the route slash blah blah blah, you can just do home. All right. And next thing is we want the component. So what are we actually going to render here, right? So let's import home from src, and sorry. So I want the current folder, not components, but pages, and I want the home component. Okay, and I want to assign it here. Cool, so we have our home, and that will be it. So let's copy this. Let's put it here, and let's say login, login, and login. Let's copy our home component, call it login, and say that the page is login. All right, simple enough. Now we want to go into our main.js. We want to go ahead into here, import router from router. So there is our router, and let's go ahead and say router here, right? So we're just gonna pass it into there. Okay, so I'll keep the main file here. What I want to do, I'll actually, yeah, I'll work on this app.vue. So instead of this, what we can use now is, so let's comment this out so we can have it for reference. Is something that's called a, is it going to give me? Never mind. Router view. Okay. And this component is default to the router and to the Vue router. And this is essentially what renders your components, right? So whatever component we got in here, one of these pages, you can think of this everything outer body. So this is where you would put your navigation bar. This is what's going to be shared across components, and you're going to see this in a second. All right. And instead of these links here, again, let's comment them out for now. And let's do a router link. All right. Copy this. Let's say home login. And instead of specifying href or this onClick where we use these components, what we want to do is we want to say the actual route that we go to. All right. So login. So if you remember, this route corresponds to this path right here. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let me clear all of this, and let me do npm run serve. Okay, now that it's running, let me refresh. Hopefully no errors. Cool. Nice. So our router works, as you can see. Let me refresh again, just so, and you can see if we're on /login, we are retained on the login page. Okay, so the router works, but we have this hash sign. What is this about? So by default, the Vue Router doesn't use the browser history, and to basically specify for the browser to not use this hashes, you have to activate something that's called the history mode, and that's basically the way I can explain it best is this right here is where your application is, and this is a part of your application. Okay, so if you ever came across a website where you have sections, right? So let's go to Stack Overflow, and for example, I will pick a, let's see, something hot where there are 4 answers. Okay, so let's say I want to share this bottom answer right here. Okay, so when I press share, it will let me copy this, and I can paste it in. And what it will do is it will drop me down right to this answer. And the way it will do this is it will use this hash here as a section, right? So this is how you sort of implement this on your own websites. So, and this is default browser functionality. This is HTML5. This is not JavaScript. This just navigates you to a section. So this hash right here is basically navigating you to a section inside the Vue Router. Okay, so that's basically the explanation for how it works. But generally, all you want to do is specify mode history. And now let's remove this login, and it works. All right, we no longer get the hash. Everything I explained there, just for your personal interest. You don't really need to know that. Or you usually just do mode history, and that's over and done with. But that's just so you know how more or less the internal parts of it work. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to utilize this home bit right here. Let's go ahead into the app.view, and I will just do it below here somewhere. Let's make a button, and let's make a onClick event, and this is just going to be an example. I'm going to delete this later on, but just so you're aware, we're going to be using this later on. All right, but let's go ahead and go to login. I don't need the parentheses. Whoa. Go to login. There's our button. Very nice. And let's say methods. Go to login. Okay. So how do we access the router? All right. So for this, I will need to bring up this console here, and this is where you should be looking right now. So let's create a object. Okay, so if we call A, this is now just an empty object. Okay, now let's go ahead and do something like just give it a name of A object. Okay, so now that when we type in A, we can have this. So now let's create an object B and place A in here. All right, and when we type in B, this is what we get. We get an object that has a property A. All right, so what happens inside main.js when we put this router in, we're gonna have this object in here. Okay, and this new router object has a bunch of methods of its own, but essentially how we want to access this is we would do this dot $router. Okay, we don't see the $sign here, but essentially if we want to call it like that, we would do this. So, and then let's go and say push and slash login for now. Let's refresh, go to login, and actually want to be on the home page for this. And so let's go to login, and you see that it navigates to the login page. Okay. Next thing, what we can do, we don't actually have to specify the path. We can just specify the name. All right. So let's go ahead and delete the slash. Go to home, and let's refresh so we know that it's updated, and we can go to the login page this way. So this was a small overview of the Vue Router, and in the future we'll go over some hooks that we can use and passing parameters to the Vue Router. But yeah, this will be it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying these. Like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions, and as always, see you in the next episode.